So, something I wrote 27 years ago. This was a little book I did with Dartmouth Street Gallery and a gallery in Dallas, Texas, Karen Mitchell Frank, as I recall. Yes, indeed. And so, we're cutting right to the chase here. How to paint. Buy materials. Buy more materials. Keep materials in boxes, stacked on other boxes of materials. Fill your head with ideas for paintings. Find a place to paint. Try the garage. Become dissatisfied with the light in the garage. And the space problem, how to paint around the car, the washer, the camping stuff. Decide to build a studio. Buy materials. Buy more materials. Build a studio. Begin painting. Use some of the ideas from your full head. Day 1, feel like a complete genius. Cover the canvas with paint. Fantastic. Day 2, evaluate progress. Feel like a complete idiot, untalented, and wasting time. Continue painting. Day 3, evaluate progress. Paint over the painting, regardless of your evaluation. Reevaluate. Day 4 through 6, repeat days 1 through 3. Day 7, complete the painting. Day 8, complete the painting. Day 9, complete the painting. Day 10, look approvingly at the finished painting. Days 11 through 14, add small finishing touches. Contemplate repeating days 1 through 3. So we are all in a geometric line, a straight line heading in a direction, like in geometry class. An arrow, and the arrow is time. We travel with it. When there is a creation, a painting, a poem, a drawing, some sort of art, there is a plane in which time intersects. The line vibrates, wiggles, and the plane, the art, reflects and projects. The plane has a message. It changes time. Another little writing from my book back when. People, landscapes, peepholes into the mind. 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions more. Is color a dimension? We travel at the speed of life, gathering memories, our inventory, what we know. Each has a mass, a gravity, an energy. Time travels in a straight line. Nothing is so fast. Each moment disappears. Each moment is infinitely complex, reaching in every direction. Up before the dawn, stumble into the studio. The sky is unbelievably beautiful, believably beautiful, full of hope in every direction. When I was young, I went to meet the master painter. He held magic in a perfect world full of flaws. I am a pilgrim. Paradox, pair of oxen pulling in different directions. Choose one or be split. Time is the dimension hard to grasp. A ride, a fast ride. Hold on for dear life. Memories are fuel, letting us do what we do, making us do what we do. We are what we gather. Constantly we measure as we travel. How much gravity, how much energy. We judge, we create, using what we have gathered and how well we have measured. If anybody has any questions as I'm going along here, please do not hesitate to ask. You might move this in the direction which you'd like to hear. The first paintings here are current paintings within the last 2 years. And that's an interesting time frame for me. I showed in galleries across the Southwest until 2 years ago, and I had pretty much narrowed it down to Sumner and Dean. and on Central near Fifth Street. And he retired and sold his building at that time and said, Angus, you've got that building on Mountain. You should keep it as a show place. So I call it Gallery 806, but it's really a show place, and that's where these paintings are. Or you can see on the website as a new work comes in and some are sold. A variety of different subject matter.
Angus, what's your medium?
So these are acrylics on canvas. Great question, since I'm at the Pastel Society. We, choose our medium through all sorts of experimentation. And I found that acrylics, when I used it enough, I could find a language that worked for me. And I think that's what we all do. And I think that's an easy thing to understand, but if you see a Picasso from any of his long, long history, you know it's a Picasso because you know his language. Even when you look at a ceramic of his or a print or an etching, it's very obviously a Picasso. And a stunning example is Van Gogh. Obviously, he created a language, but you can tell that it evolved because if you look at some of the early paintings, like the Potato Eaters, that he hadn't quite reached the Van Gogh language, and then came in the swirling lines and the trees and stars and those things. Anyway, that became a language. The ultimate, pastel language that comes to mind just right off the top of my head is Degas, and what a language he had. And I used to look at the beautiful Degas they had, or still do, at the Denver Art Museum. When I started painting, I was very interested in size. And so this painting, that's about actual size, probably. And it was a good way for a 31-year-old to try to make his mark because it was hard to ignore. If you drag the thing in, then it's in their face. It also was, so much serendipity in life, but there was a lot of fortuitousness in that. That was the early 80s. There was a lot of interest in big corporate art. And so I had something going on because I wanted to work big as an artist. There was a need. It turned out I didn't try to meet the need. The need was there. And so that was interesting. That was a great question. There we go.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just wondering if you use any kind of mediums in your paint.
Another great question, and please interrupt. I really encourage that because you guys are all pros and artists out there, and I don't want to be talking about my philosophy and be missing the boat here. The medium I use is water. It really I don't use any thing else, and that fits very much with what I'm talking about on the language. My language has been thin acrylics, and the thing I worked on the most before I got to acrylics was watercolors, and I was not a very good watercolorist because I changed my mind so much, and watercolors aren't forgiving there. Acrylics are. Yeah. But I work still very much like a watercolorist. I have very thin paint. I work with them sitting on milk crates, so it's something like this. Reaching in, and to get my language right, I have to stretch my own canvas because then you get, of course, also the shape you want, the size and shape you want easily. Not that you can't buy that sort of thing commercially, but this you can't buy, which is stretching my own raw canvas and then putting on gesso the way I like it, which is also thin. One coat, maybe thinned down some. And why that is so good for my language is because it absorbs like watercolor paper, kind of. The paint doesn't sit on the surface. It absorbs. So the other thing about acrylics that I've liked a lot is the durability. Because I was a young guy making a living at this, I had a truck. I'd fill them full of paintings, and I had gallery in Sedona and Scottsdale and this and that. I could stack a whole bunch of, I'd have them wrapped in plastic, but it was so much simpler than having something that's under glass and that sort of thing. So that's sort of an interesting, different part of the language, but it worked for me in both a practical sense and a way to paint. A language, to me, is kind of step one. You have a way to say something. It doesn't mean you're going to do a good painting. It is, let's see, wrong way. It's a subject matter and also a feeling for what makes a painting work. I don't have a real formal definition of what a good composition is or color balance or anything like that. I have kind of some rules of thumb. When I'm on day 6 or something in my story, when I'm suffering over something, a real simple rule is, did I use enough from each of the primary colors? Reds and yellows and blues. I had to think, is that the primary colors? Okay. And sometimes that fixes the problem. And I don't even quite understand the chemistry there for why that works for me, but it often does. Compositionally too, and this is kind of a no-brainer too, but is pulling things off the canvas. I have a series of paintings that I've done for 40 years that is the Rain series, and of course the lines start above the canvas and they end below the canvas. We're going to bump into one of those, I think, here, but we get the idea. Now this just to give scale a little bit, this painting is the image right now is twice as big. It was more of a 24 by 40 or something like that. That last painting too is a great example of what can happen when you kick around in a one field for 45 years. I have a collector in Santa Fe who bought that piece, and she owns, I think, latest count, maybe 14, 16 paintings. And she buys a lot of paintings. And I don't think that could have happened my second or third year doing this, but year 45, it's kind of happened.
Angus?
Yes.
On your paintings, do you go out and do plein air painting? Do you do sketches? How do you...
See, these questions are so good. Because this kind of tells you who I am. And then you can decide he really is a phony. I don't. I had I tried everything. And as starting with watercolor, and the convenience of watercolor in plein air is great. The convenience of giant canvases out in the outside, which I even tried. I remember blowing over and this and that. But it wasn't my style either. I'm a real studio painter. And so sometimes I use photos, but mostly I don't. It's mostly things that are in my head and feelings and that sort of thing. So a group of slides here just about my evolution. So this painting goes back to the 70s, 1970 something. I had just finished university. I had only a few art classes. I was a business major. But Nick Abdallah was a guy at the time who was doing, and he was a professor, paintings of old photographs. And so this is a painting I did, not for Nick Abdallah, but because I was influenced by what he was doing. of my dad and I think he's about 7 here. It would have been a picture of my dad in 1914 as a cowboy. When I showed him the painting, he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that photograph. That was my first cowboy suit." And my mother said, "We've never gotten you another cowboy suit." So that, and this was trial and error, trying to figure out this is not my language, but I was heading in that direction. This probably is my language. This is a more recent painting. This is showing some kind of different subjects I've done. I've done a pretty large group of sort of romantic paintings, and these are smaller. This is probably 16 inches square, something like that. But this is going back to trying different things. This pen and ink self-portrait, a lino cut from the 70s, colored pencil, running that up the flagpole, just trying this, trying that, watercolor. And then back to what I'm doing today, and this is actually only about 3 paintings ago. So this is quite recent. But on plein air or this or that, it really is an amalgamation of different times I've seen scenes like this, plus what I've painted before. So taking some aspects I liked that worked out and trying a different palette, trying a little different setting, trying a little bit of one thing that was in one thing that was in another, perhaps. That's what goes on. Fairly recent piece, 1/3 that size. This is, I'm going to go forward and back. Anyway, this is a quite recent piece of In My Rain series, and it's the only one that's like this, and this was this year. But I did a long series that had these vertical lines that were like rain, and they covered the entire canvas. And I really have done them since early 1980, probably. 1 or 2 a year, maybe less. People would always say, "Wow, that looks like a lot of work," and I was like, "It's the same work, but it is arduous." So I have this 1/4-inch masking tape that I, put on the canvas, paint it, peel it off, look at it, think about it, can do a wash over it, that sort of thing. So that's one of those. If I'm known for something, it's clouds. And Hammersley, who was also a professor at the university, I really didn't know him at the university, but he met me a couple times, I think, out in front of this museum, and he goes, "Oh, yes, you're the cloud guy."
Angus?
Yes.
These are big paintings. Do you photograph your own work?
Yes. Interesting history for, kicking around in the business for so long. It's such an easy thing to do these days. I used to go through all sorts of pains with 2 different cameras and take slides and take prints and try to do it right and have the light right. And it never was, I would, what do they call it? Where you take several different exposures and that sort of thing. And so maybe one would be right. Yeah, exactly. And now I take out my phone and it's usually pretty dang good, And even worked for doing publication and that sort of thing. So that certainly has become easier.
Angus, when you do your iPhone, how do you adjust for the color? Because iPhones are all different.
I'm always taking them in the same place, and I have the lights a certain way. And I think my threshold might be bigger than a lot of artists' threshold. I'm not very picky. I want them to look right, and ever since digital photography, I've been pretty satisfied. So sometimes, like I'm really happy with the way things are looking with this setup. You know, every once in a while, you're in a situation where a computer screen or something is just like, God, that's just awful, you know. So, but I don't know a whole lot about it. I pull out my iPhone and take a picture. I used to have tripods and this and that and all the things. And just as a quick aside, in my book, we were still publishing some books, Sumner and Dean and I, over the last 2 decades, and it's been so easy. But we would only end up with the number of books we needed. So back when, in the Dartmouth Street Gallery days and stuff, when we made the books that I was reading out of, you know, we had to buy 2,000 of them. And the production of them, we'd spend $9,000 in the production. And now you spend nothing on the production practically. You know, anyway, you guys know that stuff. Another subject matter that I've enjoyed a lot, and you can see my one and only compositional trick of up off the top and off the bottom. And because of the way I work, when we're talking about thinness of paint and that sort of thing, and it sitting flat like this, all the little white dots don't roll off. So, and they're splattered on sort of Pollock style. It's not like this, it's kind of like this. But the other thing with acrylics is it doesn't always work. And then you can paint over it, and you have this wash over it and stuff, and then it kind of, maybe it's working better. And it's that constant thing that we all do, which is a little bit here, a little bit there, waiting for. Acrylics are fabulous for me because they dry fast, especially in Albuquerque. I change my mind a lot. You can't do certain things when they're still wet. And so we're hitting different ideas I've had. I've liked the idea of how to see when there is very much light. And I've kind of messed around with that, and here's an example of that. Sorry. No, that's good. Kind of everyone get up and dance for a minute. Very recent work, and I've done 3 or 4 of these in a row, and it's pretty much off the bridge at standing on the bridge, looking off the bridge at Torero, New Mexico, up on the Pecos River, and that idea. I like the ocean. The fun thing about part of my ideas and philosophy is the world is just full of mixing colors, chaos. And so the clouds work really well that way, and the oceans work really well that way. And it's just a real natural for the way I work. And so when I'm painting, I kind of paint chaos-like, seeing what happens, letting the painting tell me where to go, those sorts of things. Just get the hook and just take me out of here when you've got enough. I don't think there's a lot more side. Another night piece. Probably half my subject matter is those mountains up near Torero, the Sangre de Cristos, and so to me it's just full of things to paint. Another one of the night pieces. So I got very interested in dimness and artificial light and how that, and sort of the idea of this little village and the stars, and etc. More of the Pecos country. This is an interesting thing about shapes. So this is a collector of mine, and she wanted a painting that was over on this wood piece, and it is 117 inches long by 14 or 16, something like that. So just kind of, interestingly different. And that's one thing about being a canvas painter, is there is almost no limit on size and shape. I mean, there are, but there almost aren't. Your questions have been great, because you saved yourselves from a bunch of gobbledygook here. I just want to say for you.
How many paintings do you produce in a year, would you say?
Oh, I like that question too. I'm 73, and so I've slowed down a bunch. We've got our kids were late having their children, and so all of a sudden we're grandparents, and that's been in the last 7 years. And 3 years ago we had 3 babies, so a set of twins and this and that. So grandparenting is a big part of my schedule now, and I've taken on another art and looking for a language, and I'm a writer, and I self-published an Amazon novel, which has really been fun, and I've got 2 other things in the works right now. So I'm doing different stuff. So to answer the question was I'm at about a dozen to 20 pieces a year, and that is half of what I was doing. From 1983 to 2023, I was doing 40 a year. Pretty close. And so and you know, we were selling 20 to 40 a year. And so that's where I come up with that in my introduction, the 1,000 collections. I have not counted how many collections I have. It's just like a lot of those paintings went away, and I've done so many. And so that's my math. Another long piece, same piece actually. Nighttime. You guys probably mess around with this. I like kind of standing on my head and this sort of thing, and thinking about how can you tell the story of what we see really. And a lot of times things are kind of upside down when you're lying on the forest floor, etc. You get it?
You've done that a lot, have you?
Well, you know, not recently, a little bit recently, but not a lot recently, but I sure have thought about it a lot. And I had one painting that was very much, it was a lot of starry sky and pine trees all over. And I had a dozen people tell me, that reminds me of my childhood, you know. So maybe it's one of the things we're looking for is sort of this universal message that has to do with the whole experience. Another one of the Pecos River recent pieces. This one is probably 42 inches across the bottom, so 36 by 42.
How long does it take you to paint something that size?
So, well, when people used to ask that, I used to kind of divide a year by 40. Because as you guys know, I am positive, you don't know. I can complete a painting in a week if I'm lucky. And I can also complete a painting in a month and be unlucky. It was, you know, there is certainly an overworked place, but my philosophy is to work it pretty close to overworked.
Do you work on more than one painting at a time?
Not as a rule, but yes. So I don't think I'm doing 2 paintings at once, but a lot of times I think I just can't figure out how to end this story. And I'll put it aside and I'll be working on another painting, maybe finish another painting, come back to it, and it was like, got it now. So in that way, yes, but I don't try to have several balls in the air. But it sometimes it ends up that way. Usually I'm working on one at a time.
So,
Yes.
if you're painting flat
Yes.
and it's that big, how do you tell if it's coming out? Right?
Because they're acrylics and they dry fast, I put them up on the wall all the time. Change them to different places. Take them in the house and look at them. Take them outside and look at them. So it would If I had mixed them with a certain medium, like some people want to slow down acrylics or something like that, that would be a hindrance to me because I couldn't check out the painting. And it's not that I don't paint with them like an easel painter on occasion. It's just that all the good stuff comes from them being horizontal. And of course, the good stuff, that's for you to judge. I'm just.
Could you explain your process of how you paint a cloud?
It's not a secret, and I wonder if I can. I don't know if I can. So, a little history of that thing. I did 6 workshops total in my life, and I did them from about the economic collapse of 2008 to about 2011. And probably historically there was a reason why I did them then. But it really was also just everything kind of lined up. And so we would work on that problem a lot. And it's a process, you know, and it's about lightness and darkness and having sort of a suave, having a smoothness to whatever you're doing that has to do with it. But I think it's just observational. I don't have. I would give a disclaimer when I did these workshops is I don't have a gee whiz trick. I really don't. And God, I admire these guys. You know, I was a guest teacher for a couple of art colonies in the Southeast, and there was one guy there. He sold like 3 pieces during our week there on the phone. You know, and he was a very facile watercolor painter, and he had every trick in the book. You know, and he was very good. But I don't. You know, it's stumble around in the dark until you come out with something type of thing. And I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's the thin paint, it's the gesso being right for me, and observation.
Are you using cotton or linen canvas?
Oh, cotton. These are all cotton. I have used linen, but these are all cotton that you've seen.
Do you tend to work from light to dark or from dark to light?
Also, a really good question that I don't have an answer. Because both are kind of true. But I would say I'm working from light to dark. Or dark to light. It really is. The little joke in the first part about reevaluating. And I think if there is one trick to the successful artist, it is having the ability to see their own work. And we all know it's not always easy. And so it's a matter of time. That's because I went full time when I was 31, and you don't have any time really, but if that's all you're doing, you have time. And so I think there's something to that, being able to see your own work. But there's a video, I don't know if it's available anymore, but of me doing a painting. And Roy Johnson at Sumner and Dean saw it one time and he goes, God, I've never seen such a mess. He said, you don't work dark to light or light to dark or anything. And I thought, I just do what I do. I don't know. So, great question, and I don't have a very good answer.
Do you do an underpainting at all besides the gesso?
Absolutely. But I didn't mean to. It really is like that. I mean, because I'm sure that the painting that I end up with is not the painting I was thinking of when it was after. So it really is a matter of, here's how I do think, is I'm going to cover this canvas, and I'm going to cover it quickly. And because the paint's thick, I haven't lost anything. If you have thickness or, impasto type of things, your story's being told. But I'm burying all the evidence under these. So were you to be able to go back like an X-ray, you'd go, whoa, what's he doing? So there are underpaintings, but it was not planned. Somebody's had a question over here, but I think maybe we'll get to it. Somebody else.
Yeah, it was about underpainting.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I really don't have a very formal Well, obviously, I don't have a very formal style. I just kind of have what I do, and I think probably a lot of that has to do with acrylic paint. It's very forgiving. It's very fast. And though I wouldn't call myself a fast painter, its speed in drawing is a benefit to me. So,
What brush do you use?
a horrendous number of really crappy brushes, and I swear that's really true. I have tin cans full of brushes, and some are kind of good, and some aren't very good. But I have a lot of them. You know, in acrylics, you're cleaning your brushes all the time. I wash, not enough. I wash 100 brushes a week. You know, and so I don't have $50 brushes or anything. I just have brushes. And it's also, I think, you know, I don't think a watercolor painter could get away with what I do, but I use some house painting brushes, and this and that, and I have occasionally had a hair being in the canvas and stuff, and I'm not telling anything out of school, but I have looked at the Wilson Hurley's here, and he's got a hair or two. Pretty recent painting, and it is that size, more or less. Oh, here's one of the rain pieces. That's more traditionally Angus Macpherson rain piece, which is from the top to the bottom, uniform across, and interesting, like to think about the underpainting type of thing. Sometimes, and not unoften, quite often, these would have 7 or 8 layers of the taping, painting, and coming back, and you kind of wouldn't know unless you really put your nose in it. It kind of ends up like, but and part of the doing this is washes over once it's dry. So once acrylic's dry, as you guys probably know, it's dry, and you put the water does not activate again. The paint, it's dry. So you can do washes over these concepts. And these are probably the only paintings of mine, for the most part, that have any sort of texture, just because the lines build up a little bit and the paint gets in the troughs and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit, you could feel it. You could feel it like Braille.
Do you have a favorite brand of acrylic?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it's simply because I'm stuck on it. And I've tried to change brands even because it's getting a little limited, but Liquitex is the brand I use, and it's because that's where I started. And I think probably somebody could be very successful using golden acrylics. It's a super product, but Liquitex, and Liquitex has changed over the years too. There isn't a consistency, but I can't get past it, so Liquitex.
Is it heavy bodied or fluid?
Both, but I'm mixing a lot of water with it. So with what your heavy bodied Liquitex is just got more goop and more pigment and this and that. If you buy your Liquitex in the little jars, it's already got a lot of water as the medium. I'm pretty sure what they put in there. So I have bought medium, I've bought heavy, and I've bought, I guess, light. I don't know. But I've used them all. And what I've liked about Liquitex is the way I paint with them and the way I gesso, they're not shiny. I like that sort of matted look. And and what I'm saying is only partially true. Of course, there's a little bit of sheen, but not a lot. They never look like they're varnished or anything like that.
Are you sealing your work once your painting's complete?
No, I'm not. I found really, I've heard, and you guys would know best, that the most color permanent chemically is pastel. I have, because I've kicked around so long, and since the 60s or 70s with acrylic paint, I've never seen one change its color. And they've been in all sorts of settings. And I also had 2 poster publishers on each coast, New York and California. And I've seen those posters around in places, and they don't look anything like so there are a lot of things that aren't color fast, I guess I'm saying. I've been very satisfied with how color fast acrylics are. What was the question there, though? There was something a little different there.
I was wondering if you sealed your art.
If I sealed it, yeah. No, and maybe part of that is educationally. I'm not very educated. I had a few painting classes in college. I went back and took a few more, but I didn't. And the mid-century, those weren't real formal classes. I think it's changed a lot, but. The only thing that comes to mind, and there was a really cool painting that the Albuquerque Museum had of, excuse me, Von Hassler or something, and it has a signature, and it says under it, "Never varnish." And I took that to heart.
Do you have much of an issue with the color change between wet acrylics and dry acrylics?
Not much. Not much. And maybe it's because I am so used to them. But I don't, and I know what you're talking about. There is a difference for sure. And it might be just being so used to them. Well, an interesting thing about that is I've never liked heaters on much in a studio or coolers. If I can get away with it, I do have a heater and cooler in my studio. But the point of that is that in the summertime, the color you see when it's wet is gone in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm getting a pretty good read because it's warm out. It's 90 degrees out or something like that. It's not 90 degrees in my studio, but it's very dry and humid. Today, painting would be a little different, and the wetness of the paint, but that has not ever been much of a problem. I certainly know what you're talking about. And maybe it's using just water. I'm not sure. So different things that happen in careers, and you guys were talking about so many shows and this and that. I have probably sent slides to purchases for the city of Albuquerque, for the state of New Mexico, and for Bernalillo County. All with success, 1 in 100 times or whatever it is. And this was just the most recent one, which is a fire station in Tiburon, New Mexico. And they built a building, so they had the 1% for arts. They really didn't have a place for this art. And so this looks kind of interesting here, but the reason the picture is sort of odd is because there was another wall right here. This was a hallway going down to a bathroom or something. Quite a new painting. Small-ish. These are all pretty new. Different subject matter, like I had the people floating in the sky. This piece is called Future. It is being given to a new bride to her husband at the end of this month, and I had to ship it to her, and she said, "That's just us,"
Do you find it more challenging to do the big canvases versus the smaller ones?
Kind of the contrary. I have a real comfort zone at about 2 to 3 foot square. I really love that size. Back when I was, in the 80s, when there was some demand and that sort of thing, some people commissioned some small pieces, and I never worked so hard in my life. And but too big gets hard too. I can handle too big better than I can too small. I did one that was literally too big, absolutely too big. I was told that we were going to sell one to a casino, and it was a huge space. And this is what they wanted. We don't quite have the money yet. It's the only thing like this that's happened to me, I think, where it just fell through. And I had already started because they were going to have a deadline that was really fast. I rented a warehouse. This piece was 18 feet long by 12 feet tall. It was literally too big. And I worked really hard, and it really was pretty odd, a piece. And when the thing fell through, I thought I've got 5 more days of this warehouse, and I'll just finish it because I ought to finish it, but it was too big. And with that, we can end. I loved your questions, and I think that's just kind of perfect. Any other ideas or questions? Or
What did you do with
I've got it rolled up because you can hardly move a piece around, so it's rolled up.
Yes, you have 10 minutes.
Say what?
You have 10 minutes.
I have 10 minutes as well. I can read some more stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one little thing to read that is on subject matter, and I think it's certainly not unique to me, but it is definitely what I think about. And obviously, it's just right here. So it is what I paint. In between, I paint outer space, I paint inner space. I am most interested in the space in between. The mist, the rain, the snow falling, the dust dancing in the sunlight, the fog, the lover's stillness, the smoke, the tears, the leaves, the lightning, the river and ocean waves and their spray, the shimmering reflection, the colors that are within a cloud, the darkness and the emptiness with the echoes of silence we can feel in our cheekbones. So that's a great place to end. It's like, what? One other little idea, since we'll use the 10 minutes. I have learned that there is a difference between craft and making art. And craft is the fabulous skill to make exactly the same coffee mug time after time. Incredible craft, incredible skill to do that. To make art, you don't know where you're going. And, if you're not lost, you're not trying. And that was quoted in a newspaper article about me, but she misheard me and she said, if you're not lost, you're not fighting. And that's the way it came out in the article. It was the headline. And I thought, wow, it's like I've Ernest Hemingway or something. It's so weird. I still think there's something to that, but it was that in the process, if you don't get if you absolutely know where you're going, then it's all about craft. If you're struggling to get to a new place, then it's a creation. It's art. It's something unique. It's the first. It's, maybe if everyone's lucky, the only. But it's that sort of thing.
So along those lines, do you do any kind of sketches before you go to your big painting canvas?
I don't. No, it's all about just putting the paint down. And it kind of like when I showed some of the early stuff of kicking around, I tried everything. But this is what worked for me. And if I did a sketch, if I did a little model or, something like that, a maquette of what I'm going to do, it would always be better than what I did. It's that painting teaching me, telling me where to go, giving me ideas as I work my way through the mystery.
Angus, are these things are these yours?
Yeah, so this is my little pile of merch. And look at anything you want. The book that I had the 2 readings out of is the Paintings and Poems. 2 years later, Dartmouth Street Gallery and Karen Mitchell Frank did the book called A Good Mystery. Roy Johnson and I did a cookbook it's the only book of mine that just sold out, and so we cookbooks are popular, boy, but they're hard to put together because I always did all this production stuff myself, and so I had all these recipes, and I don't know anything about cooking, and it was very hard to put it together. It was so popular, Roy said, let's do it again. And I said, well, I'm not getting recipes again, because these were recipes from people who had collected my pieces, so that was kind of a novel element. So it was kind of, and then we had new paintings at their page, so it became very confusing. Is this the painting they had? No, it's not. This is new paintings we have for the show coming up. So we used all those recipes for a second edition with new paintings 10 years after the first time. And so anyway, the cookbook's there. My new little novel, bargain priced at $5. And then some giclée prints, and I'm sure some of you have experience with printmaking and giclées in particular. These are reproductions of the painting, so the scale completely changes. These are all ones that are within sort of a 8 by 11 type of size. And so I just bought I kind of have pulled those out in my space over here just so there's something that people can buy that's not an arm and a leg type of deal. But I haven't done a new giclée in quite a while. And that market is sort of a hard one for, I don't like it because you have to be really organized and do the things you guys deal with, like framing and stuff, and I'm just not too good at that. So yeah, that's my stuff, and I have cards for my little gallery. My gallery is talking to a bunch of artists. I'm a little hat in hand because it's my show place. It's a place to see my work, and that same building, I had a gallery that was an honest-to-God gallery 20 years ago, and showed other people as well as myself. And those days are gone. I had staff and that sort of thing. I open for 4 hours a month now, and or by appointment. And but if you'd like to get on the email list, and once a month, typically I send out stuff. There is not a show in March, but there will be all through the summer. And so the email list, you'd get an email if you want that notebook's there. And
Angus, so where is the gallery?
It's 806 Mountain Road.
Okay.
Which is, and Mountain goes up in the northeast, but this is Mountain Northwest. This is old. I'm going to be one of the historic homes in the Downtown Neighborhood Association Historic Home Walk on Mother's Day, oddly enough. And so I'm right on the edge of the Downtown Neighborhood Association at 8th and Mountain.
Perfect.
So do the days and hours that you happen to be open change?
They don't. On the first Friday of last month, I was open on that Friday from 4 to 6, and the next Saturday from 1 to 3. On February, the first Friday, I was open from 4 to 6, and that first Saturday, 1 to 3. I won't be open in March, but in April, I'll be open on the first Friday, 4 to 6. So it's very consistent.
Question
Yes.
from the people on Zoom.
Yes.
Are you interested in teaching workshops?
My grandchildren won't let me. I am not interested. And here's just a quick thing about that. So I did 6 workshops. I was in a tutoring program where I was helping little kids after school, and I saw sort of the power of art. I was then given an opportunity to be the artist in residence for the Children's Cancer Fund of New Mexico, and I went 2 mornings a week for 11 years to UNMH, and it was a job. I was hired to do it, and I've found, as we know, how magic art is and how good it was with the kids and that sort of thing. That is my excuse for that. I substituted that from doing any more workshops. I found doing the workshops, and you guys know this, fabulous, and is the hardest work I ever did. And so I'm retired from workshops, but thank you for the question.
You don't work at your studio, at your...
I don't work at the gallery. I don't work at 806. Melissa and I built a house, and Probably the oddest thing we did is I said, I want us to build a two-car garage. One of them is going to be my studio, so we put glass doors on it and everything. And it's just barely adequate. We could have done it differently, but we didn't, and it's totally fine. That's where I paint. I like painting, I like being home to paint. Yeah, and that's another thing that, people always want to hear in workshops and stuff, and then they think, well, you aren't a realist. But if you have a place where you can just go and work without setting up, you've given yourself a huge favor, and where you don't have to set up and where you don't have to clean up. So, I can stagger out to that studio any time of the day and do, and shut the door on my way out.
Thank you.
Thank you.